The Charleston Digital Corridor is an economic development agency that attracts, nurtures, and promotes Charleston's tech economy through many initiatives. Today, I talk with the executive director of the Digital Corridor, Ernest Andrade, for this edition of Quintin's Close-Ups. And if you haven't already, subscribe to my YouTube channel and like Quintin's Close-Ups on Facebook. Ernest Andrade, welcome to Quintin's Close-Ups.
Glad to be with you, Quintin. Thank you.
Oh, I appreciate it greatly. I know that you are the executive director of the Charleston Digital Corridor, and I know the Charleston Corridor's mission is a community source initiative to attract, nurture, and promote the region's tech economy through an array of impactful programs, products, and events while leveraging Charleston's renowned livability. Let me ask you, who is Ernest these days as executive director?
Well, this is our 20th anniversary. And what I'm pleased to say, Quintin, is that our mission today is exactly what it was 20 years ago when we started the Digital Corridor, which was we had three simple objectives. I say simple, tactically it's been quite a challenge to kind of implement them, but they're still simple. That is to raise the per capita wages for the region, to create amazing opportunities for our college graduates here. And not just college graduates, you could be a high school graduate who's well qualified technically. So I don't want to that's not a limiting factor with us. And the third thing basically was we've got to be more than a tourism-based town. So the idea was to diversify our economy, and and I live and die by those things. Every minute of the day, right? So if you hear me talk about things, they all tie back to those three objectives. So in terms of who I am today, I'm actually speaking to you from one of the conference rooms at our new building, which was a $54 million project. Not bad, considering we started out with $800 20 years ago. And we've come a long way. We've had 6 facilities. This is the 6th facility, including one in Beaufort, and they've all been successful. If there'd been anything less than successful, I would also be able to point that out. And the community today, what we're hosting, is 29 companies here at the new building. There's a total of about 36 that I hear, of which we've got 29 of them just on our floor. And we hope that they kind of, and as we're starting to see, they grow out of here and grow into the building. So we've got about 280 employees in the building on a piece of land that's sat vacant for about 10 years.
Yes, indeed. That's exactly.
And we're on the Upper Peninsula, which is an area that needs to be populated, needs to bring some economic vibrance back to this part of the community. We are in the opportunity zone. We are in an environment basically where we've got a couple of Title I schools close to us. We've got a large African American population around us, not immediately near us. And so the idea that you can take an area that's been a little economically challenged and bring opportunities for everybody. And when I say everybody, I mean the folks in and around us basically can walk to this building, should be able to participate in events that we do. This is not a game of any sort of exclusivity, so to speak. It is a community asset.
Yeah, and what is the current per capita income here in Charleston?
So if you look at the latest census data you have, it always runs 1 year behind. It's running right around $42,000 to $44,000. I've got the specific numbers, but give or take, it's 42. The state, I think, right now has kind of climbed up to about 42,000. The region is at about 44,000. So I'm glad to see regionally the average per capita slowly coming up in the region. But when you start to look at that, as one of our tenants, which is raising per capita wages, the last survey we did, we were close to $91,000. So traditionally focusing on a tech economy and the benefits of that is it's a high wage economy. And in this particular case, we've been doing surveys since 2003, and we are consistently seeing. I certainly would call it an anomaly, but there have been no anomalies. We're consistently seeing wage levels twice the per capita of the region.
Yes, sir. And What is the biggest difference between tech when it comes to tech economy, obviously from 20 years ago to right now?
Yeah. I think basically you had a tale of two economies 20 years ago. You had a tale of the traditional economy, and then you had the tale of the tech economy. And if you go back into the 90s, there was a lot of conversation about convergence, right? That technology would affect everything in our lives, and it's going to be in all aspects. Well, it was a little late getting there, but I noticed in the early 2000s and by 2010, I would argue today that there are as many tech employees working in non-tech companies as there are in tech companies. That's something you need to know, that at least 50% of the companies out there have huge tech components and need the tech staff to drive their operation. So a law firm basically has, and everything's in the cloud, so they need basically a DevOps engineer to kind of move all the depositions and that kind of thing. An accounting firm, it's all online. A social media firm, a manufacturing firm. Now, as I like to say, manufacturing. We don't think of manufacturing traditionally like we once did. Now it's referred more to as advanced manufacturing, because there's a lot of robotics and there's a lot of electronics that are driving. So the production process. So you have to have some base level understanding of technology and machine operations and that kind of thing. So I think in terms of to what you ask, I think that the contention is the contention was that we've got to make everybody smarter, and we've got to expose them to technology, because irrespective of whether they become a software engineer, they need to have a certain level of proficiency beyond keyboarding, beyond typing, to kind of survive. And Quintin, I mean, that is not a black, white, or pink issue. That is just a people issue. And so the fact that we can educate folks on some of the things that are going around that are impacting because of technology, that's a good thing.
As a matter of fact, Ernest, let me ask you, what is the understanding right now about the needs of the Charleston tech community?
Well, the needs have always been okay. So the needs have been fairly consistent, and I like to. By the way, I like to think of business. I say business is business, right? Whether it's technology, whether it's engineering, whether it's architecture. But the reality is there are some stark differences. Number one, the need for talent, technical talent, is there's a global shortage of technical talent, right? Essentially, the educational institutions have come late to the game, and the demand is far outstripping the supply of talent. I've seen statistics, as high as 70 to by as much as 70%. I think realistically, let's just be honest and say, if it's about close to 50%. So if there's all these jobs laying out there, we need the resources to kind of get folks. So I think the talent shortages are very acute in the technology industry. So I think that's one thing that is different. The second thing is that in a technology company, very seldom do you see companies trading sideways. Meaning, hey, by the way, we're forming a company and we're going to be 10 employees 10 years from now, right? That might be the case in a law firm or an accounting firm, but not in other professionals, but not a technology company. You either up or down. Very seldom are you sideways, right? If you're sideways, you're not going to exist. You go from sideways to being down. So the reality is that you have to create. Why does the digital corridor and why does our offering? We're not just offering space, we're offering the flexibility that is sought after by these technology companies, which is, by the way, we do month-to-month leases. So in that regard, we're almost a monopoly in the community where everybody wants 3-year leases, 5-year leases, 10-year leases. So we said, okay, if you want that, we'll go do a 5 and 10-year lease, which in our case now we have a 10-year lease, and we'll make it available to these companies. So the reality is that if we as a community want to be successful in attracting more high-wage technology companies to this town, well, we got to basically cook cook it in a flavor that is acceptable to them, not basically keep doing what we're doing and hope that we'll get lucky, right? As I like to tell people, that's hope is not necessarily a strategy. So in terms of distinguishing to what you asked, I mean, I think very quickly I would just say the industry trades a little differently, but it's still business. It still can run aground if there are poor business decisions being made, if there are poor technology stacks being selected by the technical staff, if there's no marketing effort. So in that regard, there's a need for the traditional needs of business, just like any other business.
And besides, obviously, the talent shortage, what else is the demand?
Well, you got the talent shortage, then you have the demand for capital, right? So these are companies that once they get on their feet with their revenue, then it's one thing. But I think early stage capital has always been a little bit of a challenge. And again, I come back to this is a challenge whether you're opening a restaurant or whether you're opening, if you're a services firm and you're professional, it's probably easier. Then it's not really capital driven. But if you're kind of in rapid growth mode, then you've got to have the capital. So I think that I would contend that there's a lot of follow-on capital, but I think the really, really early seed stage for capital for pre-revenue companies can be a little bit of a challenge, right? So that's a little bit of an issue in terms of the other thing is I would say if you're I like to basically bring it home by saying this, right? If you're a company that's hiring 100 people making $10 an hour, the state incentives are all geared towards your company. But if you're a company who's 10 employees making $100 an hour, then there's no real incentives that are available. So I think the idea is for the state to kind of not necessarily change that path, but increase or add basically a focus on high wage job growth, just like they do in basic economic development, which is we're going to incentivize you based on the fact that you're adding these high wage jobs to our community, because you need to. What Quintin, is 7% of $100,000 is a lot more than 7% basically of $30,000, and that's what the state income tax is, right? So the state profits from having a high wage strategy. But I argue that there's a need for all. Remember, one of the tenets is basically diversity, right? And that's business diversity, right? It's not just business diversity; it's also basically employment diversity. So I just want to let you know, while we're talking about employment diversity, I called basically to ask for the stats on the floor. We have been in operation here, the new building, since April 15th. I have a total of 118 professionals, staff, basically on the floor, 72% of which are male, 46 are female. Now, there's this tendency to think there's no females working in tech. Well, I would just contend that if there's 72 males and 46 females, that's a pretty strong number. That's almost 40% if I do my math right. And we have just on our floor, we've got 18 different nationalities, and we've got 5 African Americans, right? So the idea is to increase that diversity of underrepresented folks. So what I'm telling you is, off the total of 118, we've got 23 who are non-white, for lack of a better word, right? And that's what I would say is if we can increase that goal. So one of the things we're doing is we've established basically these informally we've established some goals, and we have some of the big companies like Google and Comcast behind us on an initiative that we expect to announce. It's very, it's interesting we're having this conversation now. Next week we'll announce our diversity initiative, which is to increase the participation by folks who are underrepresented in tech. I stand correct, not unrepresented, but underrepresented in tech. So, from those 23 individuals, what if we could get to 40, right? So set small goals that can be accomplished, and not these big mandates, where you're just kind of struggling to kind of keep that. But having said that, I tie it back to our education system, right? The education system needs to bring people into this tech game earlier, and it needs to be more diverse. And what I would contend is that if you take these kids at a younger age, that all kids take to it much faster than they have in the past. Not black kids, not white kids, not blue kids, all kids, right, to take to it. So I think that you'll see these trending in a favorable direction, in my opinion, over time.
over time. And what ideal wage, obviously, incentives do you want to see come to the tech industry here in Charleston?
Well, I think one that has been very successful is the angel tax credit. So if I'm going to invest, if you're a startup and you come with this idea, I'm going to invest $10,000, and the company is less than successful, I would not consider that failure, right? I would consider that an experiment that didn't go as well from the hypothesis to the execution, right? So I'd study it. So what I want to do is I want South Carolina to have a culture that's more embracing of risk. So how do you do that? You don't use public dollars basically to engage in high risk activities. What you do is you use the public dollars for infrastructure, just like the state and the city have participated with us. For example, the city basically bought this land for $1.8 million and gave it to the Charleston Digital Corridor Foundation for $1, and we leveraged it to raise $54 million to get the project delivered. That to me is an amazing ROI, right? So I come back to what you asked about what the state can do. It's not just the state can do, it's what the county can do, it's what the feds can do, what the community can do. So let me come talk about this project specifically. You know what the feds did? The feds basically created these opportunity zones to encourage economic investment in areas that might be a little more economically challenged. That to me, Clinton, is half the formula. The other half basically is to making sure that the individuals in the community in that opportunity zone get to participate in some of the opportunities. So I would love to see individuals who live in the opportunity zone participate in the opportunity zone economic opportunities, right? And we're getting there. We're demonstrating that we can do that. Okay, number one. From the county standpoint, creating basically incentives that support the development of basically structures like this formation, and they're already on their way. From the state standpoint, the state's got about $500,000 in this project, right? All basically put into infrastructure to kind of make it happen, right? And the city put up the land. So when if you look at the public participation, it has not been tied to really it has been tied to the least riskiest. They didn't take their money and put it into a company like has been done in the past. They put the money into the infrastructure, right? And these are taxpayers' dollars, so they have to be good stewards of public money. And I love what Senator Scott's done basically with the Federal Opportunity Zone. By the way, tried many, many years before, him under Jack Kemp unsuccessfully. If I told you that incentive made this happen, right? But I don't stop there. The city basically put up their real estate, that incentive, and basically, made it happen. You know what the yield is basically just in property taxes to the city? $250,000 or more on an annual basis. Okay, so let me ask the question again. The city made $1.8 million paid $1.8 million for this dirt, of which we use 0.4 of it, 0.4 of an acre. So I would argue that basically that the yield, the value of the land basically is $400,000. Just in year one, they're going to get $250,000 back. That is a good ROI. That is a good investment. Plus, they've diversified the economy. Plus, they've created job opportunities. Plus, we have training in the buildings. So we've allowed folks who are underskilled to come in and develop some of the skills, that kind of thing. So I think that what I like to say is we're moving in the right direction of incentivizing. We don't need to not do what we've been doing, right? As a smaller, poorer state compared to some of our neighbors, we are punching above our weight class, and we need to keep doing that. But what I'm saying is we need to add this high wage dimension to it, this technical dimension to it, and understand that the incentives, these are not companies who consume large swaths of land. So it's very green in terms of economic development, in terms of their footprint. So what you do is you don't tie the footprint to those vast real estate holdings, you tie to the vast intellectual holdings. When I start thinking about incentives based on intellectual capacity rather than physical capacity, you see how it changes? Just a simple concept, right? I want my incentives are tied to what's in your head, not based on the amount of real estate you've got around you. Big change.
And what's the percentage of people who are underskilled who are coming into Europe into the profession of tech economy?
Here's what I would tell you. I think as a state, um, because of the strategies of low wage, um, non-union, low utility costs, that kind of thing. A lot of the companies that have migrated to the state, are sort of lower skill, sort of companies. Great companies, but just lower skill distribution, the visitor industry, that kind of thing, right? It's not derogatory when I say it. It's just reality, right? So what you want to do is you want those people who are employed. Not everybody wants better for themselves, Quintin. So what we've got to do is we've got to create opportunities for those who are underskilled, who want to skill up and basically move up. Right? So that's how I look at it. I'm not reactive about anything. That we owe it to the community to have to enable people who want the skills to kind of trade up to have that opportunity. Right? That's all it is. I don't want something for somebody that they don't want for themselves. So when you ask the question about underskills, every state has underskilled employees. But what if we could take 10% of them, who want to be upskilled, so to speak, give them those skills, and then now they can go apply for the jobs. Over here at the tech center, I talked to a young lady, African American lady, basically, who took another job. She says, I love what I was doing for Company X, in the building, by the way. I love what I was doing for Company X. I've been with them for 3 years. But this gave me an opportunity. It was a promotion with another company. It gave me an opportunity to basically go do something bigger and better, right? She just upskilled herself. She learned, she worked hard, she showed up on time, she learned with the previous company that's here on our floor, and she basically literally moved on up, right? What a great situation. That's the story. The story is that you come in, you succeed, and you move up or you move out, right? Into bigger, better. And that's the thing, we embrace risk. And by the way, if it didn't work out, there'll be other places where you can go because you have the skills, right? You cannot take knowledge away from somebody. You can take everything else away, but you cannot strip them of their knowledge.
Not at all. What professional relationships have enabled the CDC to deliver economic value to the membership and the community at large?
I think, you know how many employees we are? 2. At the peak, we were 3. Quintin. So when you start talking about basic relationships, we have a brain trust in this community of what I like to call basically very, very smart but quiet people, right? You have the noisemakers, every community has them, and God bless them. But what we need to do is, we gravitate, just because my DNA is gravitating to the ones who are less focused on, they're not verbose, but are more focused on execution. And the one thing I like to tell people about the Charleston Digital Corridor, we don't have committees. We have advisory groups that periodically meet and dissolve as quick as they are put in place to provide us with the leadership and provide us with operational guidance. And it is our role as an organization to execute on the advice we get from the community. So I tell anybody and everybody, you included, it is a conversation with anybody in the community. I've got one basically starting the next hour. It's that everybody and anybody becomes a consultant to me. We have never in the history of the Charleston Digital Corridor in 20 years hired a consultant to advise us how to operate the Charleston Digital Corridor. Right? So essentially what I tell folks is I said the expertise exists within the community. So I like to tell people, I said, coin this term, right? Community sourced intelligence. Everything we do is based on the input and the feedback we get from our members, from our relationships, from our benefactors, and they provide some really, really great intelligence, and they are here, right? So whether you're running, what do I do on King Street, or whether you're running a tech initiative, or whether you're looking at a recreation program, they're right here. I don't need somebody to, drop in from Kalamazoo and tell me what we should be doing in Charleston, South Carolina, right? So we have the luxury, we have the benefit of some really, really smart people from here who have moved here, including myself, basically, who moved, many, many years ago to go to school, who want better for the community, right? Yes. And what does better mean? For me, the better is defined by the Charleston Digital. right? The focus on tech. The better is defined for the African American mother who has the opportunity to send her child down for a coding class like we've done with the Code Camp Kids program. Better is the veteran basically says, I want to upskill now out of the defense, out of basically combat and such. We've got all these veterans coming home, with the war conflicts in Iran and Afghanistan. What are we doing to prepare them? Right? They're highly disciplined folks. So we should be looking at companies, attracting companies based on that workforce that's coming back. Okay, some of the cybersecurity. These can become sort of repetitive tasks that are higher skilled, and that need folks who are disciplined. Right. The one thing I said with the military, they're trained, they're highly disciplined. Show up at 8:00, do this, that kind of thing. Right. Not everybody basically has got to be an independent-minded thinker. They're trained to think basically differently than you and I, right? No, it's just do what you're told. It's a command and control infrastructure, So how do you, if you understand the dynamics of the defense industry overall of these veterans, create basically jobs that align with those skill sets? And again, what I would tell you is that there are some who want to upskill from there. But it's fine. Create that opportunity.
Absolutely. And I'm so sorry the bus is in the background here, but let me ask you, how many companies have you recruited thus far?
So what I will tell you, when we started in 2001, when 2021, identified 18 companies. 18. 20 years later, we are sitting with 500 companies today. Okay? Of those 500 companies, we have had 165 companies come directly through the flagships, our facilities that we started in 2009. So let's just say basically in 20 years, we've grown from 18 to 500 companies. Directly what we've impacted, or since we opened the first flagship in Conroe East Bay and Calhoun, which is now the Hilton,
right.
Since 2009, we've had 165 companies, and we've got, as I mentioned to you, 29 companies. Let's just round the map, 30 companies. Almost 200 companies have been beneficiaries of key investments by the city of Charleston over the years. This started out as a part of the city's economic strategy. So kudos to the leadership of this city for recognizing we need to do this and supporting. I think of it as essentially they supported somebody who's a civic entrepreneur within the city structure, right? That's why I can relate to these guys, who are entrepreneurs, because I took that entrepreneurial journey. I was scared out of my mind. I was going to be successful. I'm going to look like a fool because everybody had a shotgun shooting at anything. I decided to get a rifle and say, we want tech. And it could have gone very bad if it didn't work, right? But, Joe Riley took a chance on me, and now you've got Tecklenburg and, more importantly, 12 members on city council very supportive of what we do, right? So it's not just about the leadership of the city; it's the entire leadership of the city, the mayor and the city council that kind of keeps driving because of the continuity. We don't enjoy the continuity that we once did. Having a 40 mayor who was there for 4 years, 10 terms. So you have to kind of recognize that this is not a game of start and stop.
Right.
And that's the beauty of it. The political leadership has recognized and acknowledged this as a success, and let's do more to keep it going.
Absolutely. And how do you allow the community to understand the various member organizations' mission while deciding how to participate, support, and benefit your organization?
So I will tell you this, Quintin. I have been meeting with a lot of folks recently who still think of the Charleston Digital Corridor as a well-kept secret, right? It's coming on presentations like this that basically get the word out. It's being in the newspapers, being on the digital outlets. I will tell you this, that in fairness, we spend a majority of our resources, almost 100% of our resources, supporting companies and members. We spend a lot of our time basically in execution mode. We don't have the luxury of a marketing director, a community engagement coordinator, We don't have all these positions that a lot of organizations do. We run super lean. So it's kind of heads down, just get it done. I do occasionally go out and speak to groups and that kind of thing. But I will also tell you that I think it's also a function of people being a little intimidated by tech. Now, let me tell you this. I'm going to tell you the biggest misnomer about tech. Do you know that in the tech industry, at maturity, only 30% of the people in that industry are actually technologists, software engineers. The rest of them are all support, customer success, marketing, customer support, all these different. There's nothing to be intimidated by, right? There's nothing at all. So I think that that's something. The key is to letting people, these kids at a young age, females especially, African Americans, I qualify everything as males and females, right? And if there's other, that's fine too. But the reality is, it's wide open. Why do we have underrepresentation of females? Because at some point they get intimidated, but they see that the guys work. That's been changing for the last 10 years. And so we can't look at data from 20 years ago and look at people who don't know what's going on in real time making these comments, right? And getting away with it. The reality is we are moving closer to basically parity in terms of the male-female mix. The diversity initiatives are helping, but again, I come back to our responsibility should be to providing these kids with the opportunities and tools. Not just kids, I mean adults. I feel like as I'm getting older, everybody's a kid now. But my point being, we're a servant leadership organization. We take it to them, right? And that's the key, to launch a diversity initiative, to use our brain trust of technologists to support the community at large. You're going to see, I want to raise the game on a STEM center. Can you imagine the STEM center on Morrison Drive, where you can come in almost like a retail store, like you go to McDonald's or Starbucks, and get a little dose of basic technology and robotics and code education during the day, 6 days a week? Can you imagine that? That's a proposal that I've got out there right now to the state to say, hey, let's do this. Let's augment, because we have technology. Can you imagine kids walking through this floor, basically seeing 36 companies, hearing from the folks? We may not inspire all, but we can inspire some. And for those who are inspired, this is part of the journey. Right? This is what builds the high-wage community. This is what keeps you from dropping out. This is what keeps you engaged. I want better for the kids who are selling roses. If that's all you want to do the rest of your life, that's fine. But I do want them to say, hey, you can go take a couple of coding classes and you can do things beyond basically hustling some roses on the street. Right? This is all the way from there, all the way. So when you start talking about community, the kids in the summer don't just go to the pool and they don't just go to play sports. Some kids are perfectly happy just coming and stimulating their brain, with some code education, playing some video games with their friends, building things. So there are enough programs out there that are converting games into education, right? Dashboards,
Oh, yes.
that are being created today use software to basically understand how the world works. Can you imagine kids saying, let's identify 3 problems, kids, and let's basically come up with a project this summer where you guys are going to solve a question the city asks, which is, what's going on King Street? What's the makeup of the market? So you got field research, you got data you're collecting, and it's all happening downstairs in a tech environment, right?
Oh.
That's powerful.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. And let me ask you, what do you think today's teens, or the young adults, I should say, are afraid of when it comes to tech?
I don't think they're afraid. I like to tell people, I said, what I have found is do not put on kids our own fears, our own prejudices, our own basically distaste for something, our own ignorance, right? They come out, basically in the world completely without any of this stuff. So the reality is that if mom is basically working at a restaurant, if dad's working at a restaurant, mom's working at a hotel, that's okay. Drop him off and let him see, what's going on, right? So expose them to it. I think that kids, especially today, look around you. Look at the little kid basically being pushed in a stroller. Look at how they're getting the information. They're getting it on a screen, right? Watching a little video on a screen. Where did you and I do that when we were growing up? Okay, so they have this natural tendency, generationally. This generation, the kids have a tendency to gravitate towards it, right? So what we've got to do is we can't put our own preferences and prejudices on these kids who can learn very quickly, right? But they need to know, they need to be in an environment, they need to be nurtured, that they can come across the street. That's the beauty of basically this opportunity zone. We are as close to East Cooper as we are to downtown Charleston, as we are to West Ashley, as we are to James Island. We are very strategically located. Or like said another way, I said we're at the end of basically 26 and 17, right? This was not by accident. When the mayor said pick a location, I identified a location that could serve all people. North Charleston. I can get from here to basically the Navy base in 10 minutes if I don't get on 26, right? I can get to East Cooper in 10 minutes. I can get downtown. The kids can walk over in 10 minutes, right? I mean, look at the demographics around me. Can you imagine if the kids had a project to basically say, okay, kids, we're around these three circles, and you got to tell me, who's in there. They've got a STEM teacher basically sitting on their working on these projects. This is possible, right? That's how the community gets smarter and better. Not basically, hey, go to school and hope we get lucky. Because so you got to get kids interested in what they're interested in, and something may not be for everybody, but this might be for those kids who are not interested in history. They might be interested in software development, right? And when I say software development, you start small. You type this in, and basically you animate something on a page. That's how you learn, right? And if you did more, and if you did more, and if you did more, it's vocabulary. I know the kid knows to say dad or mama. What happens as time goes by, the vocabulary. Just think of this as vocabulary, basically, in software, right? Increasing your vocabulary and your knowledge. It doesn't have to happen overnight, but it has to be at a certain scale where it's not here today and gone tomorrow. It's easy to celebrate the one-offs and say, okay, that's what I want to do, right? The legacy of what the digital corridor can do is it left a standing imprint on this community, and it did make a difference of who was driving. Okay, I'm the director today, I'm the conductor today, who's the conductor of tomorrow? That's the reality, right? Everybody, we should be able to, and we have the ability to pull people in from outside the community because they feel obligated. Those who have benefited from what we do are willing to give back, right? So when we announce the diversity initiative, these are folks who've got to be able to sit down with a female entrepreneur, an African-American entrepreneur, female African-American entrepreneur, right? Comcast, Google, they're betting on that happening, right? We got to, we'll put it back on video to basically say, hey, listen, can you imagine doing an interview 6 months from now with somebody over here in the diversity? What does this mean to you? How did you benefit from it, right? That's the true story. The story is not about the Charleston Digital Corridor. The story is the people who have been impacted and improved our community from what we do, because of what we do.
And how do you meet the transitional, professional, office-based needs of tech and tech-related entrepreneurs taking adaptable, affordable office and conference facilities of the highest quality?
How do we meet it? Here's a great example. This female calls me this morning, and she says, I live in Wagner Terrace. My house is being renovated. I need a place to work. What does she do? She writes basically for scientific journals and primarily medical-related journals. She says, I can't have it with all the banking and everything. How do you meet it? You lower the barriers, right? You lower the threshold. You make it accessible. You make it programmatically accessible. You make it physically accessible, right? But here's the thing: when we don't make excuse, this is not a government initiative. This is a sophisticated initiative. We want you to raise the game, right? So when you say, how do we help? We expect you to perform at a higher level, and we expect more from you than you're doing right now. We will give you those resources. So how do we meet the needs? First of all, is building a physical and accessible place in a location that's accessible, and then layering all these different things on, and giving it, if somebody said, Ernest, I like this term. Oh my God, man, you can come in basically for an hour. I just want to come over there twice a week and sit down for 2 hours and work. You can do that. right? It's the flavor that whoever they are, that they want, as long as they fulfill our obligations to diversify our economy, to raise per capita wages, and to create opportunities for kids, right? Give them an internship. Give a middle school kid an internship if they're willing to, if they're absorbing information, that kind of thing. Right? So what you do is it's not at all intimidating, right? And I think that there's some programming that was developed by Mitchell Davis, who's the founder of Bibliolabs back in the day, and then of Book Search back in the day, sold to Amazon. He's developing some programming how a software company works. They need to understand that. That needs to be taught in the schools. The reality is that we're getting there. We're getting there, and we're asking the state to basically step up. We're asking the school district to step up. And the one thing we don't have, how are we successful? We're not bound by the same institutional shackles that keep some of these organizations from performing at a very, very high level, right? I mean, every day I come in and I'm like, how can we be nimble? Nimble is our middle. It's kind of on our forehead. Right? We're nimble. What does that mean? If we agree we're going to do something, let's go do it. Go do it. We don't need, we got to go to committee, we got to do this, and we got to do this. No, we don't have to do all, some things staying nimble and delivering the programming that the community needs and wants.
And let me ask you, how do you aggregate and host individual investors, angel and venture groups, and the like seeking investment opportunities in tech-related companies here in Charleston?
I'll tell you this. About 10 years ago, we made a decision not to play too much in the capital investment game, and I'll tell you why. That is, the capital game is highly opportunistic, and anything that is worth investing in, the investors will find it quicker than I can find it. Number one. Number two, when you have, I told you, we've got almost 30 companies over here. Investors, any investors, whether they're seed investors, angel investors, whether they're series, they're welcome to come in and meet with the folks over here and make decisions. But the one thing I learned is not only is it opportunistic capital, but it's easy, if we're not careful, to have a lot of finger pointing. So what I say is we're having to make the introduction, and what you do with opportunity X, opportunity Y, opportunity Z is entirely your prerogative. It is not ours, right? We're meeting basically the recipient of the first diversity initiative will be announced next week. These are two women who are looking to raise capital for a Gen Z talent sourcing platform, right? This is basically early stage. This is, seed round capital. There you go. Then there's another company I'm meeting with next week coming in. So my point is that it's our obligation to showcase some of these companies, and we do that. We just say, we used to do what we call an innovation showcase. We haven't done one since we moved the building. It'll start, come on up. It's not a pitch event. Just come on and tell me what you're doing. I'm smart enough basically to decide whether I want to spend a nickel with you or not. Right? If I don't have coffee with you, I don't drink coffee with you. That's my call as an investor. Right? So that's what we're doing. The thing we can do is the funnel has been narrowed to the tech center. You want to see what's going on in tech? Come to the tech center. Right? I'm not saying it's not happening everywhere else, but we're trying to make this place ground zero, the nucleus for things going in the community. And guess what? We just finished the building at the end of April, in the middle of April. Now we're kind of heading in that direction. You can't do it all when you have two employees.
Right. And how do you create the ecosystem that will allow companies to get to the point where the capital piece will actually come in?
Because what does the ecosystem look like? Talent, community of kind of mentors, different educational events, and opportunities to basically learn. Business plan. So what you do is, I tell people, I said, it's interesting you asked me that question, because capital is the very last thing, right? If you don't have good ideas and you don't have execution, you don't know how you're going to execute, and you cannot articulate that, then the capital should not follow you, right? I've seen, so said another way, Quintin, if I give you all the money in the world and you could go out and get the two developers you need, you're just going to squander my money. So capital is really the last piece. You've got to know, okay, I'm going to this. So the idea is to, and by the way, while on that topic, let me tell, there are a lot of incubators and accelerators, whatever you want to call them, which, by the way, we don't put a label on what we do, that force feed you all the stuff to say, hey, you're a better person because you took all this courseware that we have, right? We don't, I think if you're really entrepreneurial, you'll figure out where to get it. And so when you've got, you can tell a story and you can convince somebody to basically part with some money, that's on you. That's not on me, right? And if I'm going to give you some money, I'm going to basically, it's based on representations that were made directly between two parties and not a third party. So what we've done is we've created an environment. As I like to tell people, we've created the platform on which you can drive. And basically, if you're a capital guy, you can drive. But if you're a talent scout, you can drive. If you're a professional accountant or a law firm, to protect the intellectual property, you can drive. Anybody can drive one. But this is a road basically that meets that basically has three objectives: raise per capita wages, diversify the economy, and basically create job opportunities. Right? That platform is now physically more manifested than it has been in the 20 years. And we have the option to do a second building, and with the state's help, with some of the recovery money, we could actually do some amazing things because it's the kind of thing that's generational. Your generation, my generation, we haven't seen that kind of money come down the pike, right? So far, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity to create something transformative. And again, what I'm advocating is not putting it in. I'm advocating putting in the physical infrastructure, right? So people can come, and then it's on us to basically make them want to come because the programming is what it needs.
And Ernest, let me ask you, what trends do you see as far as growth with incubators and accelerators?
In terms of growth, I want to limit my conversation specifically to Charleston and South Carolina. Patterns that have emerged and have accelerated due to the pandemic are as follows. Number one, tech teams were already opening remote locations and dispersing the employees geographically throughout the country. This is not because management woke up one day and said, this is what we want to do. This is all being driven by where's the talent? We're the beneficiary of that. We're the beneficiary of people wanting to relocate to Charleston because it's a very livable city, okay? So what the pandemic did was it accelerated that trend. So in terms of growth will come. We shouldn't go out and chase, 800-person companies. We should be out chasing 20-person companies. And teams that are part of a parent somewhere, but actually they're doing some amazing stuff here. We've got a company, Workiva. It's a software engineering shop, specific product. It's all happening up on the 5th floor. They're part of a big company that's based in Ames, Iowa. I love that. I want about 20 of those teams. I don't want one parent, I want 20 kids, right? So I think number one, that's number one. Number two, capital has become extremely prolific, and it doesn't matter. Gone are the days where, hey, you got to be in my neighborhood, you got to be in my backyard. No. There's so much money, the country is awash in capital, that capital will find you where you are, and they will basically give you the money you need to succeed. The tools are in place, just like we're doing right now on Zoom, to report if I have to, basically on an hourly basis, daily basis, weekly, monthly basis, whatever you want to do, what we're doing. The ability to basically, so there's more cross collaboration, organizational collaboration going on. So these are all trends. These global technology, every crisis breathes new life into the Charleston Digital Corridor, breathes new life into the economy. The key is to basically take the institutional guys and realizing that opportunity and kind of having them mend their ways or extend their ways, right? So that, you remember what we started earlier, said continuing to invest in different things, right? This is not going away again. Manufacturing is going to become more and more sophisticated. There are companies actively working because of labor shortages to automate things to where they don't even need employees. Whether it's a grocery store where you can walk and get your things, it scans everything, and as soon as the price is and you paid, you can get out. It's walking to the grocery jail, as I affectionately call it, right? You go pick your things, And because of technology, it scans everything. You go to this room, it scans everything in your cart. I mean, just think, you go to a zero environment, nothing can be stolen because everything's got a code on it and it's scanned. So when you start talking about basically growth, what kind of growth? You're going to have to upskill if you want all these people to be employed, right? But yet, basically, why can't folks, one of our new members is a company called GigPro. They just work with the restaurant industry to get people. It was started by a guy who came from the restaurant industry who realized what was going on, right? So when you start about technology, it's enabled at every level. Your reservation now is on OpenTable or one of these other tools, right? And that's how they don't want to talk to you. It's like, hey, here's the slots open, they can come, right? So I think the growth, from my standpoint, I'm not stupidly optimistic. I don't have a crystal ball. I'm just looking at trends, and I'm telling you that those trends are only accelerating. The idea of throwing up protectionist walls and saying we don't want to, we want more here. That's not going to happen. The marketplace is very efficient. So what we said is Charleston is well positioned for your 30, 40, 50. And hey, you want to put 1,000 people? We'll figure that out too. But in terms of speaking for the Charleston region, you can go anywhere from 1 employee to 1,000 employees with no problem. We have the resources. So this is not a basically shame on me, shame on you. This is a shame on you for not picking Charleston because we have all the tools in place. And those tools can be improved with partners in government and outside of government, right? You need to understand some of the professionals we're talking about will come as we have more opportunities, more investment opportunities, OVC, more accounting, more companies, more accountants, more intellectual property and more legal issues, more lawyers, right? That's what builds that robust ecosystem as the community races towards 1 million people, the region. The metro area goes to 1 million people. We're at about 800 right now. It's coming. It's happening. More air service. More people want to fly in more. So what we have to do is very elegantly move into a management. Manage it to the betterment of this community. That's the key. This is how the digital corridor started. The seed for the digital corridor was when my wife got pregnant and I wanted to know what my kids were going to do. It's not because I woke up and I decided I love my community, I want better for my community. I want it better for me and my family. And that's now I can say that every parent should want better for their family, and it is our obligation to deliver those opportunities.
And what are those other trends that you're keeping an eye on right now, Ernest?
I think that the trends basically are more technology. The trends are the need for more facilities like this, basically, where you have a hybrid workforce. It's not this or this. It's this and this, right? So today's a great example. The 2 biggest companies in the building don't have any employees here today on Friday because on Friday they get to work from home.
Yeah.
It's a hybrid. So you come in on Fridays, it's crickets, right? By the time I took this meeting, there were 20 people in the building. Typically, and we have, 118 that occupy the space, right? They drift in and drift out. On any given day, there's probably about 70 here, going in and out, that kind of thing. Okay, so what are those trends? The ability to basically attract more talent in the community because people want to work remote. So we should be courting all these high-skilled people to kind of locate here while we're training up our own workforce, right? But the trend is you're also going to have a certain level of employee. He just wants to work with the highest dollar. So just like we're asking to come here, there's other communities asking them to come there. And oh, by the way, you physically don't have to go anywhere if you didn't want to. And you can work remote. So what concerns me is that we could see essentially a virtual brain drain, not a physical brain drain, but virtually they're living here, enjoying this community, and we're not getting, the participation. So another trend is how do you engage? I told somebody, I said, what you have to see happen is individual company culture gives way to individual building cultures. Because you've got 30 different companies, be part of a company culture rather than the individual culture, right? If you only have 3 employees come to work out of 30, they now can cross-collaborate with some other folks, and you see how the culture of the building matters, right? Oh, I can bring my dog too. Yes, you can bring your dog. Let's go to lunch. We see, do you want what they're doing? Oh, we can go have a happy hour and you can do this. Before it used to be kind of siloed into, we're having company happy hour. Well, how about now we have the tech center happy hour, right? That's where you want to go, right? I need somebody who's young and energetic to kind of coordinate that in the community. Right now we're focused on big pieces, but it's the little pieces that matter as well. It's the engagement that kind of leads to that development. These are the changing trends, right? And that's something we've got to be on top of.
Ernest Andrade, thank you so much for your time. And again, welcome to Quintin's Close-Ups.
Thank you. I'm glad to be with you, Quintin. And I'm happy to get on anytime. Sorry it took me so long to get here, but delighted. I hope your audience can now know more about what we're doing. And anybody in the audience is welcome to come down to 997 Morrison and take a tour and kind of join us on a tour and see what we know and learn about what we're doing. Take care. Thank you so much.
Thank you.